All right, team, I'm just going to open us up with the karakia, and then we'll kick off. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakura. He tio, he huka, he hau hu. Tihei mauri ora. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this very timely and topical conversation about career pathways and education in Aotearoa. We've got a very diverse and dynamic panel that I'm really looking forward to introducing. But just before we kick off, we'll just do some housekeeping. So the session is being recorded. Your audio and video should be turned off if you're a participant, and if for some reason you find that Zoom lets you turn them back on, we ask that you just keep it off for the duration of the session. We won't be doing a Q&A today just because we have quite a short time frame. It's only an hour to unpack quite a lot of meaty content. But what we will do, if you have any thoughts, suggestions, comments, or questions, pop them in the chat. We will present them to the panel at the end of after the event, and we'll ask for their responses, and those will be shared out through to everyone who's registered following the event when we share the recording as well. So for now, what I'm going to do is stop sharing, and I'm going to pass that rākau over to Michael and our panelists to start introducing themselves. So Michael.
Kia ora, ko Michael Toothill tōku ingoa. This is my colleague Lynette from Kilmarnock Enterprises. We are a social enterprise based in Aotearoa, Christchurch. We've been in existence since 1958, so quite a long and strong history. And our primary purpose is to unlock the potential of people with disabilities and empower them to live purposeful lives. And we get to do that every day. So we love it here. We've got about 60 employees with various learning disabilities or neurodiversity. And we work hard to seek to help them thrive.
Kia ora, thank you, Michael. Cherie, I'll pass that rākau over to you.
Ko Cherie Perrow tōku ingoa. I'm president of CDANZ, and CDANZ is the professional body for career development in Aotearoa, and we offer our members and New Zealanders a collective identity for the profession. Our CDANZ members, they work across diverse range of areas, including education, vocational rehabilitation, supported employment, youth and community development, business and organisational development, and many other areas across the world of work.
Kia ora, thank you, Cherie. Russel.
Kia ora, ko Russel Dunn tōku ingoa no Africa ki te tonga hau. I'm grateful to be part of the panel. Thank you to the EPIT whānau for the invitation. I'm a deputy principal here at Tāmaki College, and my role is partnerships and pathways. We serve a high equity community. Our school demographic is largely Māori and Pacifica. I've been in my role now at Tāmaki for 21 years. So ngā mihi to the EPIT team for arranging our panel today.
And thank you for agreeing to be part of it. Dr. Lynette Reid.
E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā hauewha, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ki te tangata kua huihui nei, ngā mihi. E whānau, ngā hapu, e te iwi, nui tonu te mihi ki a koutou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko poke hapupo te maunga, ko waimoko te awa, ko paikia, tōku tipuna, ko Ngāti Konohi, tōku iwi, no whangara mai tāwhiti a hau, ko Reid te purei tōku whānau, ko Lynette Reid tōku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Morena, atamarie whānau, and to my panelists as well. My name's Lynette, and I'm part of the panel as a career researcher, and in this instance for EPIT, but a lot of my other research has been around career transitions in all sorts of forms over the years. So yeah, looking forward to the kōrero. Thanks, Nish.
Kia ora, thank you, Lynette. And Marionette, last but not least.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm Cherie. I'm the HR Wellness and Training Manager at Kilmarnock. I work on the floor with our lovely employees, and I also get the opportunity to be part of this employment pathway program that we have, where we can offer them hands-on learning and training skills in the factory.
Kia ora, and thank you to the panelists again. And I could probably spend at least an hour with each of you talking, having a kōrero about the work that you guys are doing and the impact that it's having in your individual communities. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So let's go on to really the first sort of chunky bit. So what are the things that are working well with the communities and your kaupapa and what you see that are happening? So Lynette, I'll kick off with you and to talk about Kilmarnock and what you guys are seeing.
The things that I find that is working well is everybody is trying to do something to make a difference in people's lives who are struggling with disabilities, and acknowledging that they have potential to actually participate in the community. I think it is really great that people don't see barriers, but they actually try and find something and make it work in this environment.
That's awesome. I love the concept that everyone is doing something, and that's often overlooked because it's very easy to see that there are lots of I guess challenges that need to be addressed, but everyone is doing something. Now, I love that. Cherie, I'll pass that arco over to you in your capacity as CDANZ and as an educator.
Yeah, so I'm going to be speaking according to my mahi in terms of the work within the schooling education system. And in regards to what's working, it's career education programs that enable and equip our young people. One such program is Gateway, which is funded by the Tertiary Education Commission, and that works really well in terms of our young people having connections with the world of work, having tangible experiential learning into different industries, and getting insight into what does this type of industry really look like. And I see young people being more engaged and motivated back at school because they can see connection between education and employment. That's just one of many. Yeah.
And how are you finding that reflected, or do you find that reflected in the work that you're doing in your school and for your rangatahi?
Absolutely. I see young people where they have connections with the world of work, but also with connecting with whānau, bringing the whānau in and having that conversation in my career guidance sessions or career, guidance can be misinterpreted as well. So my career is with young people, bringing in the whānau, because whānau, they are the biggest influences and the loudest voices in our young people's lives. And they're quite often disconnected too with what's happening in the world of work. So having those conversations with their parents, but also enable experiences with the world of work, employers, the more career conversations and exposure they can get, the more informed decisions they can make. Likewise, STAR, but STAR funding is up to how the schools choose to use it. So I find leadership principles are also enablers if they see the value in career education and guidance. So students that do receive that funding and schools that do receive the funding, they're able to, STAR stands for secondary, tertiary aligned resources. They're able to go on courses. They're able to look at work integrated learning with those courses. That it's not about credits and NCEA. It's about how does my learning at school connect with the next steps beyond school.
That's awesome. Thank you. I guess, Russel, being an educator yourself as well, working with Tāmaki College, what do you see that's working well?
I think in our setting here is being agile and flexible enough to harness opportunities to collaborate and to form partnerships. And in our setting, we've created a careers lead team where career education is everybody's responsibility across the learning areas. So we're not as siloed as we might have been back in the day, so that the teachers can articulate the relevance of their learning area to a particular pathway. And like Cherie had mentioned, the opportunities that are presented through the gateway programs or STAR programs are serving to give the young people more experiences so that they can make better informed decisions. And so some of the other things that are happening in our space is that we've partnered with a trust so that we can create more culturally responsive programs to support the young people in their decision making. And I think that's the Rise Group Trust that we're using, and the program is called Ahi Ka. And I know across South Auckland there are others. There's the other charitable trust as well that are providing more opportunities for young people, because quite often once they've graduated and then they hit a roadblock or a barrier, they don't know where to go and who to turn to, because their trusted whānau has been the school for a long time. And so I'm finding more of them will come back to us and ask us for further and additional support or to point them in the right direction. I think the other important thing that we do here is to take our families on the journey with us, because the world we're living in is constantly evolving and changing. And so the pathways that were more traditional are no longer there, or within those traditional pathways, there's a whole range of new opportunities. So our whānau need to understand that. And when they do, you find that they give better support to the young people to stick with the particular pathway, because it's very hard when you're being pulled in too many directions. And then as long as they understand the demands of that, of the pathway, then at least they don't pull the kids to go and do a lot of other things for family, etc. The other thing that I've noted is programs like First Foundation. Our young people from challenging backgrounds are able to apply for these scholarships that provide them with financial support as well as mentoring. And that has ensured that they're able to complete their studies on a pathway. So, we're grateful to have those opportunities and scholarships and funding to further support the young people, to make sure that those barriers to success are removed. And then I think, our career guidance here at school starts in year 9. And that is so that they get more familiar with the terminology and the opportunities, and understanding who they are and their superpower and what they bring to the table. So a lot of the young people are now doing their online. So technology is important. And we've been blessed to be part of the Manaia Kalani program here at Tāmaki, which has enabled our students to have access to digital devices. So what the young people are able to do is to go and take advantage of online programs that can help them better understand what their superpower is. And I'm impressed by the fact that young people can say, hey, I'm an analyzer, I'm a driver. Initially, when they saw the feedback from this online program, and they said, I'm a driver, and I'm thinking, am I an Uber driver? And they said, oh, no, read further on, it explains what it means. And so I was impressed that, they could actually see that and then link it to their character and how they behave and say, well, actually, it does make sense. And then they can start to be more focused. I often use the term bloody-minded about things. And I think, in our setting, we just have to be bloody-minded, because like I said earlier, we only have 5 years. and the curriculum is jam-packed. And so the careers lead team is important because they take back what we discuss in our set meetings back to their learning areas to create a setting where kids make more informed decisions. And the parents are on that ride, on that journey with us as well. So that's our setting here.
And that's awesome. I think a couple of things that you pointed out have really good synergies and overlap in the fact that you're starting career guidance at year 9. And that's actually because you're starting that career journey so early, there must be a shorter runway beyond schooling, because that's another area that you've identified as being, where they look to support. But if you're starting them earlier, then that journey almost moves backwards a little bit. So by the time they're ready to leave school, or at a stage to leave school, they're probably in a much better they're much better situated to then go, well, this is where I'm going to, this is where I'm working towards, and whatever that looks like for that individual learner. But they've been, I guess, supported to make that decision, learn about themselves, where their strengths are, as you say, what's their superpowers, and then to direct their own learning to guide them towards that, developing that superpower more. What was that noise? Lynette, I'm going to pass it back over to you as a researcher and someone who's been steeped in careers and pathways for a long time, to share your thoughts.
Thank you. I think it's important to look at transition with a much wider lens, because it depends on what you mean by transition. And I think sometimes we have a specific focus, as in school to work, but there are many other transitions or shifts or movements that people make across their lifetime. So it's really important that we look at this in that kind of context. And I'm thinking, from work to work, the shifts and changes that people make in jobs that they currently have. And one that is really prevalent in my mind at the moment that is such a transition and such a shift is for Māori who want to go home, who want to go back to their, their hokainga, who want to go back to their rohe. I've been speaking to a few people about that lately, and that's a transition. That's a major shift. It's not economic per se. It's more personal and private about why people want to do it. So I think it's always important for us to keep that in mind when we use the word transition. And interestingly enough, transition is primarily used within the school setting. It's not always a term that's recognized beyond schools. So, there's just that language and that situation of the whole process of a transition. And of course, we have mini transitions too. And I think that's perhaps where we could put more of our emphasis, of these small, building towards something, because there's a lot of need and a lot of interesting things that we find out about ourselves through those, what I'm calling mini transitions, but I'm sure there's a more research word for it. So yeah, I guess I'm just looking at it in its wider with a wider lens. And I think from my point of view as a researcher and a career counsellor, getting to know yourself is always at the heart, not just yourself, but yourself in context, yourself in relation to your whānau, yourself in your job or career or whatever it might be. But that whole discovery and rediscovery and learning and relearning about ourselves, I think is the most fundamental thing. And that's part of career development. That's what we're all about, is getting to know ourselves. So yeah, I just wanted to put a push to looking at the world of transition, or the world of change, or the world of shifts and movements, in a much broader lens.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting you say that as well, and it brings me back to one of the points that Cherie made. When we talk about transitions, it's not necessarily something that's really acknowledged outside of the school system. And so much of the focus, and both Cherie and Russell spoke to this, is around getting the students ready and that side of things, and working with communities and whānau. And I'd love to, because I think Kilmarnock have another, I guess, another layer of this where they work with the industry, and to get the industry partners ready and better skilled at understanding what it means to be an employer. So Lynette, Michael, would you guys like to just have a just to talk about that a little bit?
Can we talk about an example? Yeah, so part of our transition or employment pathway program is to look at that part of the journey should the individual employee at Kilmarnock want to go down that route. You know, is there a job beyond Kilmarnock? In fact, when you join Kilmarnock now, it's not necessarily a job for life, it's a pathway. That's the expectation that we set. So when someone either sticks their hand up or another employer, another business comes and knocks on our door, or indeed we approach them, we start that conversation, and it'll start with potentially a work experience on their site. And it's very assisted. It's something that Marinette will participate in. She'll go and meet with the team at the other organisation and hear from them about their motivations for wanting greater diversity or whatever their motivation is, to help them understand some of the nuances, the capabilities, the skill sets, and the kind of things that could match the nature of their business. So that time that's invested by us to support that stage of the transition into another job is critical, because it is about understanding what it's going to be like. And then our team member going and spending time on site. And you can talk about an example with the cement company. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, so we don't put a time limit on how long a young person will spend at Kilmarnock, because everybody learns at their pace and what works best for them. In this case, we've had a young man with us for 15 years, and we had to work really hard to support him in this transition, but also educating the employer on how to best support him and help him, and what transition will look like. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You do have to put a bit of time in to help the person understand what work outside of Kilmarnock looks like, what the expectations are, and how best to support him, but also the company, so that they can come around and understand how to communicate, how to train, what language to use. For this young man, he fell in love with the concrete company from day one. It was just helping them to put structures in place, because the normal way of running their business wasn't going to work for him. For example, you can't tell him he can go and have a cup of tea or coffee whenever he likes, and then when he's ready, come back and carry on with work, because he has no idea around time. So he might sit in the tea room for more than 15 minutes because he's taking a break. So it was just helping them to put structures in place to support him best, because he thrives with routine and structure. And then just working with him on how long this transition or this work experience will take before he makes a decision. And like Lynette said, transition is not as straightforward as going from school to work and from one job to another. There is a whole process of transitioning that the person goes through, and there's various levels of it. For instance, his family wasn't on board. His family felt that Kilmarnock was the safe place. Outside of Kilmarnock, it's not safe, and it's going to be challenging and not supportive and things like that. So we had to then work with his family and show them what we have done with the company and what we've put in place, but also introduce that employer and the family to each other so that they can have those conversations. and build a relationship between them, because at the end of the day, it's a partnership with everybody involved, if you want to make it a success. And then once everybody was ready, we slowly started to transition him into that full-time employment with that employer. But in his case, it didn't take that long. He just fell in love. Everybody loved him. And things just really worked well. And he was ready to say, goodbye, I'm going. Although he still wants us to be there. So we did support a little bit in the background. And then in the end, it was just a natural release. But he still come and visit. He still participates in all our health and wellbeing programs outside of Kilmarnock on weekends, because we are still his part of that family that he has in the community.
And that speaks to what Russell was saying earlier, I think, as well, is that, you know, they look to support, and who's been the most constant in their life for the 5 years immediately prior to this, and that's been the school, or the, you know, the like Kilmarnock in this instance. And so they'll naturally, there's a natural sort of attraction to go back and talk to the people that you develop this relationship and trust with over years. It's interesting as well, something you pointed out about the families, and again, you know, we've had Russell and Cherie all mention this. They're an enabler, but they can also really be a, I don't want to say a barrier, but they can really be entrenched in their thinking about traditional pathways, and may not have the experience to really, you know, to gauge, well, what does the future of employment look like, and what could that mean for my child? So Russell, I'm going to pass it back to you, and we can move on to the next bit, which is, what are the challenges that you're seeing and hearing from your communities?
I think there was a book that I'd read. It was Julia Freeland-Fisher's book, Who You Know, Unlocking Innovations That Expand Students' Network. And so some of the challenges we have is, who do they know that's going to get them on to the next part of their journey? And, you know, you think of 6 degrees of separation, it'll only go so far. But so our task now, the challenge is to grow that social capacity so that they are able to access those pathways where they are underrepresented, is going to be key. So that's one challenge where, you know, people are perhaps hesitant, but we've had some success and we've seen the outcome because, for example, a company, Fusion Networks, came along and we were discussing kids getting into tech. And I had a young man who'd left Tāmaki, had done, completed his tech pathway studies, but didn't get a foot in the door because he didn't have the experience. He had all the diplomas, etc. And then I had a CEO, Andrew, saying to me, okay, I've hired somebody from overseas. They came for a few months and then they'd gone. So we connected the two and said, okay, give the young man a chance. And what the outcome was that this has now become a program that's run around the country where we're offering young people internships. So I guess from employers is to give everybody an opportunity to have a go and then put the pastoral supports in place. The positive outcome is also that these young men and women are coming back into their community. They're working in our schools, they're running our networks, and the other young people are seeing them and saying, hey, this is possible. You know, Michael, I want to say I watched the news last night, and there was a man who'd been deaf, who was deaf and had been working filleting fish for many years. And then he transitioned into the building sector. And all the pastoral supports, his family supports. The company brought in someone to do sign language so that he could understand the complexities of what he was doing. And he absolutely loved it. So, you know, there's lots of gold. We just need to go and mine it and then put the supports in, which is, you know, being empathy, showing lots of empathy, etc., for the challenges that our communities are facing. So lack of social capital, I think, is one challenge. Educational disadvantage is another. So by that, I mean, you know, they don't all have the same access to career planning support or career coaches that other communities may have. You know, when you think of some smaller schools, they may have one careers teacher or head of careers serving 100+ students. How many minutes would you get with that person one-on-one to coach you? So it's a lot of, I like to always say, hit and run opportunities. You come in, you sit down, 5 minutes, you're gone. It can't happen. You know, a rugby coach never spends 5 minutes once a season with his team. So they're constantly there and available. So coaching is a challenge, having more people out there with the right kind of experience, advising the young people. And like we said, biasm or discrimination for some minority groups, I guess, would be another challenge that, you know, doesn't help to get people through the door. The other challenge was financial constraints as a huge one. So what we're seeing now with our senior students is that they are making decisions around finances and leaving school to go and support the families, which means they're giving up on their dreams and aspirations that they once had. So financial constraints is forcing some of them to take on low-paid jobs and to leave school early. So, you know, that's compounded by the fact that, you know, we've got situations where family doesn't fully understand the pathways, etc., that they need to be on to ensure that they could get higher paying jobs to better support the family. So let's stick with the education side of it so that they're able to do so. So they're cutting it short because of the financial pressures that they're under at the moment. Limited work experience, you know, our gateway coordinators have to go out and find these companies to place students with. Some companies are hesitant because they just don't know how to engage with schools, I guess, or with the young people coming in, or they're too small to be able to free up somebody, especially in these tough economic times, to then mentor a young person. So there's that challenge, I guess, and I suppose government or policies could be put in place to better support that. So those are just a few of the challenges. Self-motivation is another one where, you know, they just haven't quite made their mind up yet. You know, planning, I guess, is another one. Where to go? You're bombarded with so much information that there's not enough time to make sense of it all. But there are things out there that they could potentially, but they just need that compass to point them in that right direction.
Thank you for that, Russell. And this, I mean, you touched on so many things. Cherie, I'm going to pass it over to you. And again, as from your educator lens, Russell touched on, I mean, a lot of things, but one of the things is around the particularly for seniors that he's seeing is around that pressure to potentially go into work early, and how that's impacting on things like attendance and truancy, their ability to continue to participate in the education system. So again, I mean, don't have to just on that, but that's the thought of you.
Okay. And if we're looking at our learners at the centre and how we cater for the learner, obviously we've got this whole ecosystem around all the different influences speaking into that learner. And I see so much anxiety placed on our young people with their various, what they are bringing with them. They are not an individual, they are part of a collective identity. And so when we're working with our young people to not just see them in that space, but getting to know them and understand who they are and their family too, and the different external pressures on them, as you've mentioned, Russell, that some of them put aside their dreams and aspirations because of the harsh realities that their families are facing with finances. And that is where, this anxiety placed on them to also, the young people within that, they're going, I have to make and choose the right job or pick the right job. And that job's not going to be good enough according to my family. And then there's this roll-on effect of attendance, not coming to school, losing motivation, getting too far behind to go, oh my goodness, this is just too hard. So when we're looking at that learner, that the role of the careers lead in schools, most schools do have a career lead, is so crucial in terms of having time to work with our students as individuals. That time is just so essential, but it depends on the school and how they are resourcing that. Russell, I just loved hearing that, career guidance, that career support is offered from year 9. And the landscape is so different across New Zealand schools, and it depends on their leadership of their school. What they see value in is where they place the resources and finances. And unfortunately, careers is not protected. There is no mandate. There's no regulation according to how the careers information grant should be used. It can go into the pot. There's no regulation around staff, how that is to be used. But these career resources can help our youth at risk, can work alongside and support that holistic. If we're looking at our learner in a wider lens, there is resourcing there, but it depends on how the school sees career. And as Lynette mentioned, transition is wider and longer. A career is lifelong from birth to grave. It's not about choosing one destination. And some schools only have the resourcing to see a student at year 13 when they're about to walk out, and then all of a sudden they're like, I haven't had this time to even think about it. So if we're looking at, and I hear, I think it was Russell that you said that all our educators are career educators, but there's a systemic issue in that is some of our educators don't know what career is or career education is. It's not about going, oh, there's that job and that job. It's part of our whole identity development. And so I see a challenge is that career education needs to be core business of our education system. It's not an add-on. There's counsellors in schools. They have specialised counselling skills, expertise and knowledge. And our career staff also need specialised skills and knowledge to help work with our young people. So, that is a systemic issue, I think, nationwide in terms of how we're helping. And we're hearing time and time again on the news, attendance. I tell you what, if our young people had more mentors, more role models to speak with, more interaction with our careers people, they would have more motivation and connection with purpose of why come to school, to be seen as an individual. So that whole investment around it, yes, we've got literacy and numeracy issues in education. Absolutely. We've also got an attendance and motivation and disengagement issue across our schools as well. So I see our careers people having a key role in reconnecting and igniting our young people to why come to school. At the end of the day, what is education for? Why do we educate? Another challenge in that is the mindset. The old mindset is pick a destination, a job, and work your way back, right? As we know, the world of work is changing. It's dynamic. And so thinking more about the wider lens of career clusters. There's the new work mindset that came from FYA, Federation of Young Australians, and New Zealand has also adapted that mindset that work is in 6 main career clusters. And so it's not having to pick a job, but looking and exploring at school these clusters of work and how does that align who I am? Because I really do believe our young people, and this is our youth at risk, as well, all of our young people need to work out who they are before they can work out what do I become, you know, and who I am in terms of, Russel mentioned superpowers, who I am with my skills and strengths should be core part of the curriculum. And I see a connection with employers in terms of, you know, we talk about qualifications. What about the transferable skills of attitude and working in a team? And there's the whole employment framework with employability skills that quite a few educators don't know about. And Youth Employability Aotearoa developed this employability skills amazing program. I've been trained in it, great PD, that works across not just with schools, but youth in transition, equipping them with the employability skills to work in the workplace, because it's just not about a qualification. You know, if a young person's got positive attitude, keen to learn, has the support with them, you know, and scaffolding that transition space with them, wouldn't it be awesome to see all our young people find a place and space in our society?
I guess that transitions us really well into the last part of this conversation, which is what would you like to see implemented to create change? So is it around providing more strategic guidance to be deliberate in schools about how they view careers and career pathways?
Well, there is hope and there is excitement, because there is a national career system strategy that got passed last year, and I know Lynette's doing a project within TC, and it's so exciting because there is 12 recommendations, and they are looking at what quality career education and guidance can look like. And there are lots of good you know, there's things happening that we don't even know about. And hearing from Michael and Russel, you know, here, communities are being responsive. So the career system strategy gives us that skeletal framework of going, what are we doing in Aotearoa? Where are the needs for our rangatahi? What can we do? And you know what? I think if there was policy, if career education and guidance was mandated, seen as core business, an essential part of our curriculum, you know, it's not about measuring these external credits. Yes, they are important. I'm not downplaying that. It is important that there is achievement and we aspire to excellence. But what about all these other things of who I am and identity development and how to communicate and work with people? And have I got a growth mindset? And how do I work with people in the world of work? You know, not just climbing them up this cliff and putting a parachute on at year 13 and pull a string and jump and go, hey, I hope you fly, you know, but let's equip them with the feathers so they can fly. So there are definitely, you know, for careers also, career professionals to be a regulated profession. Counsellors, you know, they are seen for their specialised expert skills. Nurses in a school office, they need certain credentials to go and get help when they're sick, right? So what about profiling and acknowledging the work that our careers people do within the school, the incredible role and life-speaking role that they have, for them to be equipped with time, with resourcing, with professional development, and that's just going to come from policy at the bigger level at government. What can they do at this bigger level? Because the individual person in a school can feel like a lone island. But and you can only create so much change and do so much within your community. And I know people are working so hard as individuals, as school communities, as community groups, as responsive youth community groups and transition groups. But that needs to be acknowledged, valued, and profiled from the top. And I believe this is the space with the career system strategy and also the development of Tāhatu as a platform that will go across the whole world of work, across the whole lifespan. At the moment, they're working on the education section, but it's going to develop throughout and accessible and equitable to all people in Aotearoa. So those things that are being put in place now are areas where I think our careers people can come in and have a voice.
Thank you. That's awesome, and it's always good to look at at that systems lens, because that's really where the change will come from. And I love the kōrero that you've had, which resonates with what Russel was saying earlier in the work that they do. So Russel, I love that you guys have at Tāmaki, you have a focus on building your networks, because being able to see others that look like you, talk like you, come from where you come from in these roles as role models, that's powerful. That you can put yourselves in their shoes, right? And so what would you like to see implemented to create that change from your perspective, Russell?
I just wanted to tautoko what Cherie was saying, and I believe also there's a tertiary qualification that people can study towards to help better inform the way they do their mahi. But for me, all ships rising on the rising tide is what I'd like to see going forward in New Zealand. I was heartened by a paper that was written by Paul Dalziel, and that's always been in the back of my mind about a regional ecosystem. And what that would entail is that we form these partnerships where we can co-construct the curriculum. Because I think if I had $1 for every time I've heard an employer saying, what are they teaching kids in school these days? I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be in a warm climate somewhere on an island, sipping a few margaritas or something. But the thing is, all ships rising on the rising tide would be what I'd like to see going forward. And that would be, like I said, co-constructed curriculum with employers to better meet the demands of what is actually happening in the place of work. I saw, for example, again on the news, a gaming company making millions of dollars, government grant, $150,000 was given to them to do that. As part of that process, I'd like to see more of our Māori and Pacifica young rangatahi being allowed to go in and being mentored by these companies or being given some internships there. And I will add that it should be a paid internship so that they're not having to say, look, I can't take this opportunity because I've got to go and do some picking for a supermarket. So if we can then get to paid internships, then it takes the pressure off there. Lots more apprenticeship and internship programs, like I said. We're living in a VUCA world. It's so volatile that we need to build more resilience in our young people. So lifelong learning, like Cherie is saying, is going to be important. Transferable skills, those soft skills that people talk about, problem solving, we got to build that into our curriculum. Volunteering is another opportunity, give kids the opportunity to go out and volunteer in their community, because it is about community at the end of the day. Promoting entrepreneurial mindsets, there's going to be a time where you may have to find your own way and support yourself through a business venture that you may wish to undertake. So to explore those opportunities and develop those skills within the young people that, you know, when there's a turn in the economy, you can pivot and you can keep going and support. And then, of course, the policymakers to come in and create this ecosystem for us that supports the young people would be more valuable, I reckon, going forward. And of course, for those small businesses that are out there, to give them those opportunities and tax breaks to be able to take on our young people and mentor them. And the last thing I'll probably say is to that digital divide, man, you know, I can talk about, oh, there's so many online tools to mentor the young people, to give them information. But if I don't have internet at home, if I don't have a digital device to access it, then the only people who will benefit from those tools will be those who have the means to.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a wealth of information out there, but if you can't get access to it,
Exactly.
it is just going to stay there, and our kids are going to stagnate. So, you know, there's global opportunities. There's online mentoring that could help, because the poor careers teacher in the school or careers lead can't do it all. You're just one or two people, you know, so they can't give the young people the time and the attention they need. You need more individualized one-on-one coaching through this process to make a life-changing decision. So I will say to those companies that are doing it, well done to them for engaging and partnering with schools, co-constructing the curriculum. I will say to them, they're creating ripples. You know, those companies that are doing this, they're creating ripples that are impacting communities across New Zealand. And we need more of them to come on board so we can create more ripples and change lives, and all ships rising on the rising tide, I guess, at the end of the day.
Thank you, Russell. And last but not least, Michael and Marinette. We've only got it's nearly at the end. So I'll pass it back over to you. And I think that's a really good segue, because I feel like Kilmarnock is one of those organizations that are doing it well. So.
Well, thank you. And further to Russell's point, it does feel like a ripple, but we really believe wholeheartedly we have a workable model, and it's scalable. We want to do a lot more, and we believe we can. And we're purely limited by funds. And EPIT has stepped up to really help reinforce and keep us going. But beyond that, it's about engaging with multiple partners to ensure our future so we can do more. Because we all want the same thing. And our vision here is for a world that values diversity. You know, all stakeholders in this country want that same thing, and that includes government, who are a key stakeholder for us. With the right amount of funds, we can scale our model, and that's what we need.
Kia ora, thank you. And Lynette, did you have anything more to add?
Just one short thing. Career development, we're in for the long game. This isn't a one-off. This isn't I've got it wrong, so I can't come back. This is the long game. This is intergenerational. So, you know, what we talk about now, we'll be talking about next year and the year after that. It's not going to go away, but we're making a great effort to keep things moving. But yeah, we're all in it for the long game, whānau.
Kia ora, Lynette, and I think you nailed it on the head there. So we will start wrapping up now. And just so you guys are all aware, so a link to this recording today will be shared out to everyone that's registered. Any questions that have been posted, and I saw one just came through, will be presented to our panelists, and their responses will be shared back out again through to the wider group that have registered. We've got our event series, so this is by no means the only thing that we're EPIT running. So we've got an upcoming event on 17th of May. So that's an exploration of distance and virtual learning in New Zealand. So it's a bit of research that we've commissioned to look at the efficacy, what are the success factors. We've also got, as part of our ongoing series, more. So we've got a whole bunch of events that are coming up, and which you can check out on our website. We're also currently working on delivering a futures thinking and human-centered design workshops alongside the events that you can see on the screen at the moment. last but not least, so we also have a career survey. So this is based on the back of Dr. Lynette Reid's research report, which EPIT commissioned, empowering our youth. So building on these findings, Lynette is now undertaking a nationwide survey of principals, leadership teams, career advisors, transition and pathway coordinators, and our aim is to gain a whole Aotearoa view of what the space looks like currently. Everything that I've spoken about today, I'll share a link out through to everyone that's registered. A final thank you again to our panelists. You guys are wonderful. The work, the mahi and your kaupapa are meaningful and are creating real change for your communities. And it's great that we are able to participate in some way with you guys. Again, if you want to find out more about EPIT or get in touch with us, there's our details. So, and thank you to everyone that's attended today and to everyone who registered and wasn't able to make it for various reasons. Your participation and interest in these conversations and then your feedback and all, of course, it really helps us and the people who are most involved and most affected create real impact and change. And that's really what it's about. And ultimately, we want to be part of that change. So yeah, I'm going to close us off with a karakia. Yeah. Kia tau te manakitanga, ki runga ki tēnei o tātou, kia piki te ora, kia piki te maramatanga, kia hoki pai atu, kia hoki pai mai. Tūturu whakamaua, kia tina, homie, huie, tai
Tai
kia.
kia.
Kia ora, everybody, and thank you for your time.